Welcome to the Housing Ombudsman Service podcast today. I'm Victoria King, one of the Sector Learning and Development Leads here at the Housing Ombudsman Service, and today we're joined by Owen Query, Head of Housing Strategy and Partnerships at London Borough of Waltham Forest. So in 2023, Owen's team set up the London Knowledge and Information Management Benchmarking Group. So we're here to talk about that today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Owen?
Hi, Victoria. Yeah, great to be here. My name's Owen Query. You pronounced my name really well. It's spelled E-O-I-N. Usually people get it wrong, so appreciate that. Yes, and as you said, I'm Head of Housing Strategy and Partnerships at London Borough of Waltham Forest. So for those of you who aren't geography students, that's in the east of London. We're like an outer London borough, just to the east of central London. And the reason I'm here is, amongst many other things, I've been helping our local authority prepare for the new social housing regulations, and as well, sort of taking a strategic lead on our sort of housing ombudsman engagement, housing ombudsman work, and responding to complaints. And as part of that, my team and myself have been responsible for making sure the local authority responds properly to the spotlight reports that the Ombudsman publishes.
Thank you, Owen. So my first question for you is, how did the idea originate to start a knowledge and information management benchmarking group? I'm going to call it the KIMBG from now on, but we're talking about the benchmarking group if I say that. Did you use the spotlight report on knowledge and information management and its recommendations when you were setting up the group?
Well, the first thing to say is that we were really impressed with the Spotlight report, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on the Ombudsman's podcast, but it was really well produced, made a lot of sense to us in terms of articulating the challenges that we knew we had around data, and I'm sure lots of others do. So it made a really good business case for approaching knowledge and information management in a strategic way, and it set out really practical actions for taking things forward. So normally when a Spotlight report comes in, we would go through the action plan, action recommendations anyway, but this is one that we realized could have real benefits for us because of that business case that was set out really well in the report. So the idea of the benchmarking group originated from I guess the third recommendation of the Spotlight report, which recommended benchmarking against other organizations' good practice in knowledge and information management. And so a lot of the credit goes to Sarah Wilson, a project manager of my team. She really took the initiative and went about setting up the group. And yeah, unfortunately she moved on from our organization. She's much missed a few months ago, otherwise she'd be here answering your questions because she did all the hard work on this. I really want to thank Sarah. I'm sure I can forward the podcast when we're done as well. So what Sarah did, she reached out to London councils, which for those of you who aren't in London, that's the organisation that kind of coordinates between all the London councils. So usually around lobbying work, showing good practice. So Sarah reached out to them to see if anybody else was planning on setting up a benchmarking group for knowledge and information management, which London councils, they didn't have plans to do that. So Sarah got the green light from London councils and she created a benchmarking group for local authorities, and she was able to get contacts from different local authorities across London through London councils. And so she sent out the communication saying we want to get together, share good practice and knowledge in this area. And then the group was first set up with local authorities in mind, but after that we did have housing associations in London join as well, and we adapted the sessions to sort of allow them to join too.
Thank you, Owen. So what was the aim and the purpose of the KIM benchmarking group?
So we set, after having the initial discussions with other local authorities and providers, we set it up as a task and finish type group. So rather than it being an ongoing group to benchmark, we set it up to run just over a 6-month period to facilitate collaboration and knowledge sharing among those organizations that were interested, and with the goal of being to improve our knowledge and information management practices, and we achieve that improvement through benchmarking and through supporting each other and responding to the Spotlight reports. It was really about supporting each other as professionals, supporting each other as organizations, local authorities and housing associations. We wanted to provide a platform for members to benchmark their knowledge and information practices against the Ombudsman's recommendations, other industry standards and best practice. We also want to promote the exchange of knowledge, experiences and innovative approaches related to Kim and encouraging members to identify areas for improvement in their knowledge and information management process. So it was really about us all getting together as organisations and professionals, looking at the Spotlight report, the recommendations, seeing where each of us were, and working together on it. And I want to say, us taking the lead on it was not because we thought we were like best in sector or anything like that. It's probably the opposite. Actually, we thought this is something that we know we've got to be better at. I'm sure the others in the same position. Let's get together and address it. And that's definitely what we found once we got people in the same room and virtual room. That's definitely what we found.
So it was set up as a task and finish group, and it was around for about 6 months. How often did you meet within that 6 months? How frequently did you meet?
So the group was set up in September last year, so exactly a year ago, and we finished in March this year, March 2024. So it was monthly meetings, so it was 6 meetings over 6 months. And we took a view that a task and finish group would be the best solution rather than an ongoing meeting. With the focus on supporting each other to respond, we felt there is other benchmarking structures we have. We use Housemark, I'm sure a lot of others do, that we didn't want to duplicate any of that in terms of sharing data regularly, and we thought the value might diminish as we went on. So it's about getting those initial steps, in terms, particularly around the sort of strategy development and learning from others over that 6-month period. But we met monthly.
So I think you've already sort of touched on this already. The group was regional, wasn't it? It was London based, is that right?
That's right. The group was London based. So while Kim issues that are raised in the Spotlight report are universal, we know London's got its own particular issues, especially when it comes to asset data and resident satisfaction. And just for those who aren't aware of the data, maybe not in London, in general, asset data and resident satisfaction is a bit lower in London than the rest of the country because of, it could be because of how we work, but I think a lot of it's just to do with the realities of London in terms of we have higher levels of poverty than most of the rest of the country, and there's more particular challenges around overcrowding, house prices, etc., which we think drives resident satisfaction and the difficulty of maintaining good assets. So yeah, we felt it made sense. We have a lot in common with other London local authorities and housing associations.
So in those meetings that you held between September and March, what did you discuss at those meetings, and what outputs do you have from those group meetings and from the group as a whole?
Okay. I mean, we discussed how difficult it is to navigate knowledge and information management with low budgets. I think we can all relate to challenges around housing revenue accounts and having to do more with less. But one of the interesting conclusions we came to, and I've come to with knowledge and information management, is really for the future. If this is one area of where if we get it right, it should save us money in the long term because it's value for money. It's about understanding your assets better, understanding your people better. And if you can do that, you should be able to be more efficient and more targeted in terms of what you do, doing the right repairs at the right time and making the right interventions with residents and customers at the right time. So we definitely talked a lot about that, like how are we going to manage this on within realistic budgets. We discussed self-assessment, external assessment and peer assessments of how we can check each other's work, and we're able to do that within the groups. We discussed policy creation, and we're able to develop templates and guides for each other around Kim strategies and other Kim policies. And we had some guest speakers to be able to demonstrate potential of AI, which I think in the future will link with Kim. And we found that if there's a good foundation of knowledge and information management, then you've got the potential to use those other more sophisticated tools and potentially in the future AI as well, if you can get your core data sorted out, which I think is a big focus of what Kim work should be. In terms of products, produce benchmarking supports. So the Kim benchmarking group produced benchmarking reports summarizing the findings from benchmarking studies conducted in the group. These reports serve as a valuable resource of insights, we think, and best practice for member organisations and for the broader community, because even though it's London-based, most of the principles will apply elsewhere, I'm sure. We produced best practice guides. So the book developed some best practice guides that distilled some of the key lessons we learned from the benchmarking studies. And those guides are designed to offer practical recommendations and strategies for improving Kim work. We maintained a repository of benchmarking data and metrics, which we anonymized because it wasn't about sort of league tables or picking at each other, just about having some comparison data to look at. And members or anyone else who contacts the group can access this data to assess their own performance and compare to others in the sector. And we also had some workshops and seminars that were organised. We attended Housing Ombudsman Conference and spoke alongside the Ombudsman about the KIM work, myself and Sarah. So that was really good to be able to share that with the broader sector. And there was also training sessions to disseminate knowledge and insight through benchmarking. And those events as well provided some of us to meet sort of more in person and learn from each other as well. So linking up with the other work of the Housing Ombudsman and the sort of conference network. And then finally, we developed an online knowledge hub, which is set up through Microsoft SharePoint, people are familiar with that, where members can access all of those best practice guides, benchmarking reports, and other resources. And well, I can make those available to anybody who's interested. Just contact me for details. They're still up there. We just need a link.
That was going to be my next question, actually. Can other people access the resources? Anybody else that's interested?
Yeah, so as I said, the group's not meeting now. We finished in March, but all those resources that Sarah and the other people involved from the different organisations developed are available on Teams and SharePoint. I'm happy for people to email me direct, and we can set them up on that.
Brilliant. I'll pop your email address in the notes for the podcast, so you'll be inundated, I'm sure, Owen. So back to the group then. What were the responsibilities of the members within the group?
Yeah, so this is more thinking with others want to set up benchmarking groups in other areas. So we asked each of the member organisations to designate a representative responsible for participating in the group. And for this, we pitched it kind of at it was project officers or heads of service that were responsible for developing the KIM strategy. So I think for any benchmark group, it's about getting the right people at the right level to participate, depending what information they need to have to hand. So we wanted this to be a really practical group that would help organizations to develop their KIM strategies and respond to the Spotlight report rather than a high level strategic type discussion. It was that kind of really practical. So it was kind of, as I say, heads of service or project managers who were responsible for the strategy development. There was a responsibility on members to share the relevant data, practices and experiences. And we did that in a way, like I said, that wasn't about identifying the worst practice, but if someone was doing well at something, that they'd have an obligation to talk about it and share what they were doing. So that's sort of the approach we took. The outputs that I've mentioned, so the best practice guides and the templates, they're very much a collective effort. Obviously, Sarah chaired the group having set it up, but in terms of development of the different documents that were shared across the organisations. And we obviously want people to attend regularly. I think we had most of the meetings online. I think there was a couple of meetups when we were at conferences and training sessions, but most of the meetings were online just to ensure we had the right level of participation.
So how was the group governed?
So it was chaired, as I said, by Sarah, the creator of the group. And then we had at the first meeting discussion around to clarify sort of terms of reference, membership, frequency of meetings to make sure we had buy-in from everyone. And that, other than that, it was fairly light touch. Sarah chaired it and produced the papers, but we made sure that everyone was agreed with the timescale and the terms of reference for the group.
So for other landlords who are perhaps listening to this podcast and are thinking, this is a really good idea, I'm thinking about setting up something similar. What advice do you have?
I think, and I asked Sarah about this, who was in the group, and she said that asking all the participants to be very transparent about where they are with their project and with in this case with KIM and to freely give good advice. So we really want people to feel like they could trust each other in the group, that you would talk about where your challenges were. And I'd say that was very much the spirit that we went into it with. Like, we need help with this. We want to see what others are doing to support us and support others. And Sarah took a lead on that by frequently showing what we were doing at Waltham Forest and where we were struggling, where we had missing data, where our data we knew it wasn't up to scratch. And so I think if you're going to take the lead in with setting one of these up, you've got to sort of lead by example in terms of what you're able to bring to the table in terms of information sharing, kind of good practice and sometimes bad practice as well. So things that the Ombudsman's picked up on, data issues, where you're finding the challenges, and I think that helps other people to open up and bring their issues to the table as well. So that's really important, and having some structure around the meeting. So the way Sarah structured the sixth meeting was to work through each of the recommendations as we went through like the six meetings. So breaking up into chunks a little bit, the spotlight report, having like a logical chronological order in which you address them. So sort of doing the strategy first and then the more detailed recommendations after that. So, and then using the information. So you're not trying to cover everything in every meeting. You're able to theme it, have a good like meaty discussion, and then move on to the next meeting, produce your product. So yeah, those are the things that Sarah found worked really well with the group.
So we're currently working on the evaluation and the follow-up report for the Spotlight on Knowledge and Information Management. Is there anything you think we should cover in that follow-up report in terms of best practice or learning? Interested to have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so one of the things we really wrestled with, and I know others in the group as well, is getting, and something that not enough organizations have thought about, is the governance around data and the governance around knowledge and information management. So who's responsible for different aspects of data, both from like the data entry and data responsibility to like the leadership responsibility too. So understanding that, and I think the way it's articulated in the Spotlight report is an asset register. So how are you able to, so for any particular piece of data, who's responsible for the data entry, who's the person that can fix it if someone spots a problem with the data that's wrong, who can actually go in and fix it, and then who's got the overall leadership responsibility. And then how do you ensure that if you want to really be a data-driven organization, which I think we all do, is to be, how do you get the leadership buy-in for that? What's the leadership reporting on that? So I think that's really important learning from this. And then the next stage after that for us is the data culture as well. So how do you develop a culture where most of the data we have comes from frontline staff. It's a surveyor in someone's property noting an issue with the property, or something's inaccurate in the database, or it's a housing officer interviewing a resident and recording their personal details. So it's how do we ensure that frontline staff understand the importance of their role in that, because that's where we get good data from, and the benefits of that, rather than it being kind of an add-on to their job for it being core, what the benefits are of that. So I think, how do you create that culture? And I think it's with those staff, but then for that to work, you need managers from team leaders right up through the organization to be seen to be making decisions that are based on data. So if you can evidence that we're making decisions based on data, then people start to understand the value of collecting the right data and inputting it. And that applies to residents as well. So if residents can see that we're making smarter decisions that are data-based, either around repairs, around residents, around assets, then residents are going to be more engaged and more cooperative in terms of the data you provide as well. So I think that's really critical. So how can we work smarter, more efficiently with the diminishing resources? Knowledge and information management should be able to help us do that. Because I think we need to understand our assets and our communities better to help us deliver better services, help us reduce complaints, and it helps us to make better decisions when it comes to long-term planning. And as I've mentioned it earlier, but there's a lot of talk now in the sector on the benefits of artificial intelligence, AI. I went to a housing conference up in Manchester earlier this year, and there must have been at least 10 or 15 separate events on AI, and they were all packed out. I think I went to one or two, and they were the ones, because it's kind of flashing, it's in the news, isn't it? Everyone wants to hear about AI. So they were all really well attended. Lots of products for sale, asking people to buy in, lots of talk about what the benefits could be. But I think the smartest people at those seminars I heard were one saying, you don't want to spend any money on AI now. It's what you need to do is sort out your core data, make sure you got the right accurate data across your assets, across all your residents. Then you'll be in a good position in the future when perhaps the AI is a bit better, that you can actually benefit from these tools. So I think him set out, the Spotlight report set out a really good framework for getting to that point. So that would be my advice. Don't buy any AI now, but get your data sorted out, because if you don't, you'll be missing out on the benefits of smarter tools in the future. And yeah, that's going to be, in the long term, we know of the challenges we're always going to have around budgets and things. That's where we want to get to.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Owen, to discuss the group and have your thoughts there on the AI. Very interesting. For those listening who would like to find out more about knowledge and information management, we have resources on the Housing Ombudsman website, so www.housing-ombudsman.org.uk under the Centre for Learning Key Topics page. We also have another couple of podcasts about knowledge and information management, one of which is for senior leaders. So if you haven't listened to that already, please do. And I'll pop your email address in the notes underneath this podcast, Owen. So if anybody's interested in getting hold of the resources from the group, they will email you. So thank you again so much for your time today, Owen, and thank you for listening.